Thanks for getting up. I'm about to have a drink, so I appreciate it.
No, thank you for staying up this late as well. I greatly appreciate it.
That's cool. I'm off tomorrow.
That's okay then. So we'll just go through a few things. I'm just going to ask you a few questions about Blackfish, some orcas, and then just a few of your views on certain things, if that's all right.
Sure.
Have you noticed, a rise in a lot of support for boycotting places like SeaWorld because of the documentary?
Yeah, I think in general there's been a growing awareness of what captivity means, especially for killer whales, but also for other animals in zoos. Tim Zimmerman has written about this a lot and wrote a piece, I think it was in Outside Magazine recently, that is the rationale for closing most zoos as we now know them, because anyone that goes to a zoo can easily recognize stereotypic behaviors being emitted by big cats and gorillas and animals that would prefer to be in their natural habitat compared to behind a small cage. So yeah, I think awareness is growing. I think that's the biggest benefit of what Blackfish has done. I know about 150 million people so far have watched the film, and it's still spreading globally, including places like Hong Kong and Australia and other places down under, so to speak. So yeah, it's still growing. I think it's actually become a movement now. They're calling it the Blackfish effect and then the Blackfish movement, and I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, I've definitely seen on Twitter people sort of quote me and say the Blackfish effect, and yeah, so that's really good. Sometimes I flick on the SeaWorld Facebook page. I don't know if you ever go on there to just see what kind of nonsense they put out. And the most recent thing, they put out something for Mother's Day, and they put, just got it on my Kindle here, and they put out sort of pictures like this, and said they're all happy and all this nonsense. What would you say to this, to these pictures?
Well, all I know is that while I was there, I witnessed calves being separated from their mothers. I know John Hargrove is famous for knowing of at least 19 times where killer whale calves have been separated from their mothers. And so, there's a lot of things that SeaWorld says, but actions speak louder than words, so to speak. And SeaWorld is famous for showing pictures of mothers and calves that have actually been separated and using that as an advertisement for how they don't separate mothers and calves. So SeaWorld can't remember one lie after the other because they just continue to fabricate misinformation.
Obviously, you see in the Blackfish, it's heartbreaking when you hear that mother orca when she's crying because obviously they've taken away her baby. It's just heartbreaking. So obviously you're completely against all zoos and aquariums, sea lions for shows and things like that.
I'm not against all zoos. I'm in favor of places, for example, that say you have a retirement center for like elephants, where they have 10,000 acres where they can beat elephants. I don't mind animals being put in an area that's protected from poaching, for example. But most of the modern zoos, or the zoos that have resisted becoming more modern, are really just putting animals on display in environments that are not suitable for most mammals, so to speak. And in general, I think captivity, especially for free-ranging animals, should be stopped. And that includes polar bears, pinnipeds, walruses, killer whales, dolphins. Most of the animals at SeaWorld would rather, even the penguins, would rather be out in nature than behind bars.
Definitely. So I was speaking of out in nature. I've watched quite a lot of David Attenborough. Love it, and I've just recently finished watching Life Stories, and it's so lovely to watch all these animals, in their natural habitat, and doing the natural things like hunting and mating and finding a group that they hang with for the rest of their life and things. I mean, how do you think this affects the orcas missing out on this? And would this would probably affect if if they did eventually get released, how they would fit into the wild?
I don't think most killer whales at SeaWorld are suitable for full release. I do think some of them are most suited for a sea pen or a sea sanctuary, where you would put them in a cove, for example, that maybe had a fence closing off the opening of it, and then you could still have animal care and animal trainers and veterinarians caring for animals, such as Tillicum, for example, who really doesn't have any viable teeth left, because one of the tragedies about captivity is that these animals break off their teeth on the concrete and steel bars that are used to segregate them. So this is a stereotypic behavior that is similar to the cribbing behavior seen in horses that become neurotic because they're locked up. So killer whales break their teeth. This makes them poor candidates for release. If you go to SeaWorld, I'm not recommending it, but if you ever are in SeaWorld, you'll notice that the trainers flush the animal's teeth out 2 to 3 times a day using an antiseptic solution and some saline mixed together. They use a water pick, and they actually pour it down into the holes that are in the middle of the whale's teeth. And without that type of husbandry care, most of the animals wouldn't make it in the wild. They succumb to systemic infection. One exception to the rule, one notable exception, is Lolita, who appears to have a good set of teeth. Her mother and family are known and alive here in the waters off the coast of Washington State, where I live. So I think that Lolita is an excellent candidate for at least a partial release, and who knows, maybe even a full release. But most of the animals could not survive in the wild without ongoing care, and most of the reason for their need for ongoing care is the damage that they've sustained because of captivity itself.
That's just so awful. It's
yeah, it is.
It's awful.